Hi, and welcome to the Improvisors podcast. My name is Neil Thomas. His name is Kevin James. And together we talk with improvisers about their practices of improvisation.
We've been enjoying immensely chatting with improvisers about their histories, their approach to improvising, their current projects, and of course, their enthusiasms.
And it's worth pointing out these emergent conversations are subject to very, very minor edits. Who are we talking with, Kevin?
Thanks for asking that, Neil. That's a good question. Today, we've got Carolyn Connors. How wonderful. Shall we go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Carolyn. Good afternoon, Kevin. Welcome to the Improvisers podcast. I think I'm just sort of very, very unreasonably excited and enthusiastic about seeing you, Cara. It's just lovely. We're thrilled. We're thrilled to have you on, and where to start with your vast history of performance and engagement with all kinds of different theatre and art. So maybe let's start with when you ran into improvisation. Was there a moment when you were hit? Tell us about that.
Well, vast is the word, Neil, vast. I'm feeling older and older as I get older. And thank you for having me too. And hello and hi, Kevin. Just really lovely to be able to talk about myself without having to pay for it. You know, it's really such a rare opportunity. I started off as a piano player and went through all that classical piano playing and went to uni as a piano player, as a pianist. So I have all that classical form and training in my brain as an instrumentalist. And I was playing with a saxophone player. We had this sort of put together, I started playing jazz and then was put together a duo with a saxophone player, and he'd make sounds, like extended sounds, improvising sounds, and I would mimic him vocally, and I would very playfully kind of connect with the sounds, matching either the timbre or the pitch or the speed or volume, other qualities. And there was an incredible freedom in that for me that took me right off the page, right off the music page and into the body, into sound as a material object and a sound from the body as a communicator. And so that was the beginning. And we worked as an improvising duo for a couple of years. So my beginnings as a vocalist aren't well, there are other people who start with improvising, but the instrument hadn't been trained as a singer that then went into improvising. My brain had been trained as a musician and my hands had been trained, but taking my body into the vocal space, there was incredible freedom and lightness in that for me because there was no expectations of me being a singer. Whereas as a piano player, as a pianist, it's very lonely, hard work to just be a hack, actually. It's really hard to be ordinary on the piano, let alone good. But I still love piano. And but yeah, that was the beginning for me of improvising. And one of the features of that time, because that was probably nearly 40 years ago, was there wasn't any internet. And so I would hunt in record shops and I would go to people who worked in record stores and say, have you got any albums? Anything with weird voice on it, anything with experimental vocal work. But on the whole, the work I did was self-driven and I wasn't being led by any movement, or even though there were pockets all around the world of people who were doing weird shit voice work. I feel very grateful and very happy that it was self-driven and I wasn't hearing things and then trying to mimic that. So I have a very strong sense of ownership of my work because I found it in my body. And when I teach or when I hear other people sing, I really sense that quality, that that everyone has their own sound. It's in the way that we can hear any singer on, and we know who it is. If we know that singer, we can identify them because the voice is unique and original, the quality of the sound. Yeah, that was my beginning. And then from then I did lots of training on my own and with teachers, and yeah, lots of different work to develop the body and develop the facility.
Wow. And I suppose in some ways the improvisational aspect of that is it's sort of coming unbidden in a way from your core. I was, rather than kind of working from a score, which is what a lot of music's about. So that's fascinating to think about it coming from the body. And in some of the conversations we've had with other practitioners, for instance, I'm thinking of Peter Trotman. He talks about beginning with his body and listening to the body, and from there the what's evident or what's emergent arises.
Yeah, even though I feel like there's a connection with the other people that you're interviewing. I've listened to quite a few of them now, and the body, I think, is a real through line. That real engagement with the body as a tool, as a force, as a presence in the improvisation. And for me, my connection with that is that I adore live acoustic performance, which makes me really daggy. I don't have recordings. I don't seek out lots of pre-recorded work. It's about me and my body in a space. This body, this woman, this age, this is what I look like. This is what I can do today. And that kind of permission, it's not even a permission, it's just an acceptance of what this is now, has always been there for me. So whatever I wanted to do when I was 25 or 30 or 35, it feels the same now. What I want to do and what I'm interested in is what this person, this body wants to do now. And I can't see that changing. It's been there for nearly 40 years. So that kind of permission, or that kind of acceptance of weaknesses as well and of limitations, means I can keep going.
Carolyn, many viewers watching this will be familiar with the work that you do, and many won't. So I'm wondering if it's possible to say just a little bit more about where your current focus is, or what approaching improvisation now is for you. Would you wander down that path a little?
So I think my starting point always is that singing or vocalizing is literally anything my voice can do. Anything the voice will do is fair game for performance, and is a part of the range of the performance. Sometimes I describe it to people that, I described it on Tuesday. Someone said, "What do you do?" And I said, I'm a musician, a vocalist in sort of avant-garde, experimental. And she went, "Ooh, that sounds niche." And she was sitting in front of an abstract painting. And I said, "I'm the sonic equivalent of that." It's, that's all it is. If it's a way of explaining it simply. And the work has been either as simple as me being in front of an audience and just going for it, free improvisation, to structured improvisations where I might be working on a particular sound, like vocal fry or something, and I go, okay, that's going to be my material, in the way that a trumpeter might, they have their notes and their go-to things. So my improvisation sometimes might have a bit of a context that for me is a starting point. Like dance and movement, I'm curated often to play with other people I've never played with or been with. And sometimes we know those people can be fiends, and they can be there with speakers and effects, and it's going to be a bomb. They are going to fucking bomb you. They're going to just be beasts. And I do have game plans beforehand. If I know the players and I know that that might happen, I won't go in completely blank, because I also feel I love the engagement with the audience, and I feel if someone's given up their evening, even paid some money, paid for parking, have to put up with sitting next to other people, they've given up a lot. They want to go home having had something happen. And so game plans are sometimes part of it. And then the other big part of my work, and so I've also done solo shows, that are up to half an hour, which are constructed improvisations that I put into theatre. So they're called theatre for listening to. And a very big thread in my work is me as a contributing, participating artist in contemporary new work that is team devised through improvisation. So the end product may be quite fixed or have very strong parameters, might even have a narrative and clear character, but the shape of the show came through an improvisatory process. And a really good marker for me is, what would this look like if it hadn't have been me? And so I can often feel very connected and feel ownership of that work if I imagine, well, if someone else had been going through that process, the work would be different. So my improvisations and contributions, that process has contributed to the work. So that's been a really big thread for me for years as well. And I love that. I love contributing to someone else's bigger picture, to a bigger work than what I could make on my own.
Oh, while I was listening to you and watching you and thinking about you performing, there's just real fierceness and a presence that you have. So it suddenly dropped into place for me. I'm kind of thinking, of course, you're in a way you abandon yourself to your body and your sort of that sort of earth strength, because it is just so present and so strong. It's like there's a kind of a fierceness around it.
I wouldn't mind responding to that. I'm a Sagittarian, so I'm half animal down the bottom half, and I have the arrow. If I can't gallop after you, the arrow will get you. And my Chinese sign is tiger. So you're done for from whatever way you come at it. And I do think that the human experience, that my skin, I think, well, I am, and I see it in other people, not everyone, but I'm bigger than my skin. Like, I'm bigger than this bag of flesh. Like, I walk through the world making myself smaller all the time so other people feel comfortable. And performance is one of the places where it's okay to kind of be grand, fierce, but I'm not always that. But I hope I'm not. Well, who cares? But it is. That's part of my approach. Like, that is very much a part of what it's about. That a human, what we see walking down the street, or what we sometimes see or hear, isn't actually what humans always are. That we can be a whole lot more, big and unexpected. And for me, just as a core, every time I see that or hear that in other people's work, the meaning of that is that there are other ways. There are other ways of being, that there are other solutions in the world. And in a way, it's an expression of hope. Every time someone gets up and is authentic in themselves and communicates that, I always go, oh, thank God, there's hope. That's hope for me. It represents the ability for us as individuals and as a culture to find other ways, different ways, interesting ways for whatever. My form happens to be in art and performance, but I think that's true in any pursuit.
Carolyn, when you mention just what you're saying now, there's something about us becoming more than ourself, or more than maybe even, dare I use the word, human selves, because as I watch you perform, so often there's a creatureness, there's sounds that are not words, they're not conceptual, they're almost guttural, they come from sort of an embodied, almost creature form. You mentioned the lower part of you is a bit like an animal, so there is that whole side. I notice many of us that perform that use language, the language itself keeps us to some degree within the domain of humanness, but sounds seem to springboard into places beyond that type of limitation. Can you respond a little bit to that?
Love to. Oh, thank God, thank you, Goddess. I'm so happy that I came to voice as an instrumentalist. And I was liberated and free from words and meaning. And I think that most singers and most people who use words, even if it's even if it's improvised and abstract, move into it from the body through emotion. So they'll kind of be in an emotional state, or perhaps attempt to connect through emotion, or they are using words or trying to deny words, but either state still traps you in meaning. I think you're still trapped in meaning, whether you're using words or deconstructing them. And so what a gift for me that as a piano player, I had 15 years of making abstract sound through my body, mind you, just through like those bits of my body, just at the ends of my fingers, which is also a bizarre experience because you're sitting in front of this big wooden beast with felt and hammers and stuff. And it's probably one of the smallest points of contact of any instrument, just the fingertips. It's very odd, very strange. But yeah, it's like I was programmed to experience music and create music separate from feeling and separate from meaning. And that's, I think, and I've really encouraged that. So I do sing songs as well and write songs and use words, but it's very much, I'm very aware of how that's contextualized.
Wow. I'm just a sort of almost an aside, but I'm sure you'll make it flow in. I was thinking about asking you, or just asking you.
You can do either, Neil. You can think about it.
Yeah, I'll just step up out of my body and ask you about the highlight. Is there a highlight you could talk about? Or, obviously highlights, but one you would like to, a performance highlight.
Look, I'll just run through a few.
Yeah.
I made a work years ago called Material Mouth, which was a 1-hour show that was at La Mama and a few other festivals around Victoria. Really didn't tour much. But that was a series of songs, which some were completely improvised, and it was like a complete every song was a new kind of vocal world. And I won a Fringe Award, Best Performer of the Fringe, for that show. And it was a real arrival point. It was me putting together theatre and sound and improvisation. It was all acoustic. And I made costumes for every one of the songs. So I was on stage sort of transforming sonically and physically and I just completely loved that show. So that was a real highlight. And I've made a few standalone shows like that I really love. another highlight, I don't know, standing on a table in a bar in Canada wetting my pants because the person I was with went off script completely, improvised, and they were being so funny. I didn't laugh. Like, it's again like the Sagittarius, top half completely controlled, and I wet my pants because anyway, that was funny. That was a highlight because peak experience only happened once. I don't know. There's been so many, and so I did a performance with Moira Finucane. I've worked with her quite a few times, and there was one character that we developed with me being a sort of evil piano player, and that she appeared a number of times, and that was so deeply satisfying because I had a lot of control. I didn't have to do any of the organising, but my work and who that piano player was and how it involved voice was very much up to me to work out. So that was very beautiful. I've got too many. I don't know. The most recent work I've done, a real feature of my work is objects. So I add objects to the voice so that the outcome is a third sound. So it doesn't sound like the object, it doesn't sound like voice. It sounds like a combination or something else. And I did a work called Stranger. I was a contributing artist to a work called Stranger that was on at the Meat Market last December. And I made 12 instruments that were on microphone stands for the general public, for the audience to use. And that was really fantastic to be asked to do that. So the audience moved through the space improvising with instruments that artists had made. So that was very beautiful. I don't know. I can't talk about highlight. This is a highlight. I mean, getting to talk to you two about myself. Geez.
Carolyn, what you said, like so many of your performances are framed in particular ways by the sounds of it, and working with others. But I'm really interested in sort of the details of what it is to perform improvisationally, how it is to work emergently, whether you're using just voice or instruments, and how it is when you start to improvise and perform, and over a duration, which could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, to sort of form a piece or shape a piece or have a beginning and have an end and navigate that domain for a period of time. As an improviser, can you talk a little about that? How material emerges for you, how you shape it, and what that implies?
Yeah, I will answer that question, Kevin, but I just need to add one more highlight. Is I have a band. We almost never play. We've been together since 2014. We're called Hammers Lake. And it's me and a cello player called Judith Hammond. We're a trio and we have a drummer, but we sack the drummer every gig. So if you say, for example, you're a percussionist, we might ask you, Kevin, would you like to do a gig with, be our drummer? You get to play with us once as an improviser, and then we never play with you again. And we've been doing that since 2014. I love that. Anyway, that for me is a perfect kind of example of what I like, where there's some context. It's not pure free improvisation. There's a context, there's a sort of a game around it, but enormous freedom within it. In terms of my solo work, one piece I did a lot for a while, I don't know, was to do, for example, was to decide to do circular singing, which is actually singing on the in-breath and the out-breath, and to go for half an hour, which I've never done. But I have got to 20-25 minutes. And so that's, it would sound, I'm getting over COVID, so I don't know how well this will go. I might end up coughing, but it's like singing. It's not very clear because I've got croaky voice, but it means there's always sound. And so literally after about 15 seconds, I'm no longer in control. I'm never taking an in-breath and a pause before producing. If production is constant, then, you know, your voice gets dry, your mouth gets dry. It doesn't do what you want to do. You might inhale too much air and then you've got to get rid of it and then you're out of breath. And it is like riding a, you know, riding some kind of untamed beast, which reminds me of another highlight, which was where I rode a mechanical bull at the launch of the Melbourne Agricultural Show. Carolyn would never do that, but I was in a costume. But unfortunately, before being thrown off the mechanical bull, all the stupid rings I had on my fingers got churned around on my fists as I rode this bull. And then I got chucked off the bull, and my hands were all bleeding, and all the sponsors at the agricultural show wanted to shake my hand, and they were coming up to me to shake my hand, and I refused to shake their hand. Anyway, that was another highlight. Times I've hurt myself improvising. Yes, so that circular singing piece I really love, but it's really hard work to do. I don't know if that answers your question. Yep. More questions, please.
Makes me think of, well, I had a couple of questions. Maybe I could have two questions, and you could choose one. What about that? I was thinking about, first of all, I was thinking about breathing and like 15 minutes of sort of like a hyperventilative kind of state and the effect of that on your being. And then I was tying that in with the sort of thinkings around the importance of breath and how we're all struggling with poor breathing, and so much of our issues with energy and mental health and all that can kind of put down to breathing. So this one question is to perhaps ponder around how singing and making noises and the importance of coming from your body has helped you in your life, or has it? And the other question is, and it's connected or not, is, and because I know this has been something for you, how has it been to be such a strong woman in a world that has been very dominated by men? So you can choose.
I might be greedy and take both, Neil.
Okay.
I'll see how I go. Breath is very interesting. I've done in the last couple of years more breath work than vocal work in terms of practice, and have been doing heaps of breath work and have been writing music to breathe with, and have explored a lot of different, I don't know. Yeah, I would do a lot of breath work every day now. And I agree. It's one of those new, except not new, areas that is being discovered as one of the things. Conscious breathing and different breathing techniques can contribute to your health, and in the reverse, negative breathing, breathing badly can have a negative effect on your health. Anyway, that's a massive topic for me, and I love it, and I do see that that's a part of my future. It's a big part of my present, and it's a big part of my future, and I kind of look forward to how that's going to affect my singing, actually, as it just more and more embodied. I think that just helps me be more and more embodied. And the female thing, I think it's a really mixed question. When I was younger, just in the rock and roll band world, like in the kind of pub scene, improvising music, so male dominated. I go out now to some of the gig, and I don't see me there. I don't see me on the stage. I don't see many women my age performing, and I don't see many women my age in the audience. And I don't know if that means we should do more performances at 10 o'clock in the morning, or if it means there aren't that many people I think a lot of people would like that. If we had gigs before lunch, that would be so nice. But that really worries me, that there's a real drop off as we age. And I do go out and I'm in the weird shit music, you know, there's not that many of us. The biggest barrier at the moment is money. I hear it being talked about as age, but because I've been an artist all my life and a mother, and that has kept me in Melbourne, being a parent, you know, has meant I haven't had the freedom to travel or make lots of money or be in big show, you know, just complicates the life of an artist. And now, as a consequence of that commitment to my practice, I'm a renter. Any jobs I have are low income. And I think there's shit tons of ageism and possibly sexism, although now I'm older, I'm either ignored completely, which is true, or I get an enormous amount of respect. I also have to say that I move in some circles, and some I feel like I am deferred to sometimes and acknowledged and respected enormously. And so that's very interesting. I think there's it's kind of fractured, actually. That I feel whole. I feel like my practice is deeply whole, but I feel like the way I move through the world is through these fractured spaces, which are either ageist or sexist or very respectful. But actually the reality is I have to work part-time to just pay the bills. It's a terrible juggle, working out how much money, what's the minimum amount of money I can make to leave the maximum amount of time free to make work. It's really, I think my output and my practice would be different if I had any money. So that's actually the top topic for me in terms of barriers at the moment.
Carolyn, thank you for that. Something about this being a free-ranging chat.
Yep.
I'm wondering if I can just hit off on another direction, acknowledging everything that you just said importantly. But coming back to practice, there's something about being in control and relinquishing control, or being out of control as performer, as improvisational performer. Something about how we navigate that each time we perform, being in control and conceding control to the content that's emergent in a performance. Are you willing to make some comment around that? It's really taking us back to things we were chatting a little bit earlier about. But that experience of control and conceding control in order to access materials that are emergent and unexpected.
I probably can only respond about me, and I have seen people who are mad perform, or people who go out of control, and I have some kind of admiration and awe for people who can arrive at who can truly cross some kinds of lines where the outcome may not be. So I think I'm always slightly, at least a bit in control. So I probably concede control, and I definitely allow myself to be taken, especially if I'm performing with someone else who's either being very quiet or tiny or huge or unexpected, that all those invitations and where they can take me, I welcome very much. But I don't think I go to out of control. I think some kind of compositional or bigger picture or structure or sensory Carolyn is always on, is always awake.
I wasn't necessarily thinking of out of control being an extreme state, which is one way to go, but more that fine line, I think, between controlling through skills that we carry and just flipping over that edge at times into places that are a little bit less controlled and where material emerges that is surprising. So I guess it's that edge between things we know and things that emerge because they emerge in the moment and they're not immediately within our grasp. Something more close to home than that.
I think you've probably just said it, that I welcome that. You know, I think you've said it better than I can. Yeah, I welcome those things. And sometimes it's in technique where if someone's playing and you go with it, I might find sounds or things I would never do in practice in that moment in an improvisation with someone else. I get taken to something I haven't yet known about myself or my body. And what it can produce. Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say. I mean, I actually think it's simple. I think it's what you've just said. It's performance. For me, performance is this sort of pot of skills, experience, knowing, but with improvisation, being able to be having a quality of self that allows me, that's willing to be taken elsewhere as well. But I do think there's something in true madness where, but I also think for the audience, so that's why I started off saying for me, because I think for the audience, they can often have an experience of a performer of that because they may not have heard or seen anything like that before. And so the audience can have the experience of that being wild or out of control.
Well, Carolyn and Neil, I think we're reaching towards an end. It's not an end that I would like to happen. I feel we could chat for hours, Carolyn. This is so alive and so interesting and so rare to have an opportunity to chat to you in some detail. Neil, what do you think?
I think yes, and I had a request, and it may or may not be possible, Caro, but I'm wondering whether we could go out of the episode with some trademark sound making from you.
Okay. I don't know how this little mic will deal with it, but one of the things I like doing is exploring my cavities.
Okay.
These ones. And so I might do that now, but I might just dry out the pipes. Are we ready to do that now? Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Kevin. Here we go. See what we've got.
Carolyn, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So appreciate it.